Hello fellow colonists, and welcome back to another video where you can listen to me yap about Rimworld. What is today's subject, you ask? Well, it's about plants. More specifically, plants that are unique to Rimworld and its universe. I was actually a bit surprised when people asked me to cover plants, but hey, who am I to disappoint, right? The universe of Rimworld is large and expansive. Many planets, many life forms including bioengineered animals and humans, but also variously bioengineered plants. I'm going to cover all of the plants that are unique to Rimworld and its universe, obviously leaving out stuff like strawberries, corn, rice, and so on. If you don't know what rice is, then I don't know, go outside and touch grass or something, or do that anyway, since it's going to help you connect with plants and nature, which is going to be the theme of this video. In past videos, I have already talked about a few plants, one of them being probably one of the first unique Rimworld plants that you're going to encounter, and that's the heelroot. The heelroot is a plant with a name that perfectly reflects its vital role in medicine, particularly on Rimworlds. Despite its fragility, it's widely sought after due to its well-established healing properties, which make it an essential resource for creating herbal medicine. This concoction, derived from heelroot extracts, serves multiple medical purposes, reducing infection risks in open wounds, combating fever, and enhancing the immune system. Its popularity is especially high among less advanced tribal colonies, who often refer to the heelroot as the healer's hand. While not a cure-all, herbal medicine offers significant benefits compared to having no treatment at all, and can be easily obtained by foraging in the wild. The origin of heelroot is quite fascinating. It emerged through the selective breeding of various plants known for their medicinal value, undertaken by early settlers. However, in its initial stages of development, this plant was known as Zeridium and had a different appearance. Over time, it evolved into the heelroot that is now common on most planets with viable ecosystems. It's likely that terraforming agencies deliberately spread its seeds during planetary terraforming efforts, providing future settlers with an accessible solution for basic medical needs. Fiber corn is an inedible fibrous plant, which is cultivated for its toughness, as properly harvested fiber corn will produce a substance similar to wood and can be grown indoors without the use of a solar lamp, as fiber corn requires less light than other plants on average do, making it a valuable source of wood for biomes that are rather scarce in forests. Unpopular in many farms and colonies, as the process of growing fiber corn is less efficient than directly harvesting wood, it proves itself useful only in specific situations. Haygrass is a popular crop cultivated especially by cattle breeders. It's a mixture of nutrient-rich grass, which upon harvest will result in a large amount of hay. Inedible for humans, hay is a great nutrient for herbivore and omnivore animals, especially during winter, when snow can end up covering a herd's grazing fields, making haygrass an exceptionally valid food source for the animals. But now let's make a step into the world of mushrooms, and let's start with the nutrifungus. The nutrifungus is an especially good one. A bioengineered type of fungi, the nutrifungus is large and meaty and widely cultivated for its high nutritious value, but it can only be grown in dark places, as exposure to any kind of light will most likely kill it. It is an extremely popular crop amongst dirt moles and other cave and mountain dwelling colonies, as the nutrifungus is also largely unbothered by the lack of high fertile soils, making it a viable option within areas where large fertile lands prove to be rather unavailable. But even non-edible mushrooms can have their use. Take the timber shroom, for example. The timber shroom is a tall, brown mushroom which can be harvested for its wood-like properties, making it a valuable source of fuel or building material within caves. And following next on mushrooms is the devil's strand. The devil's strand, despite its name, it's actually a pretty useful and innocuous mushroom, widely cultivated across many societies, as this particular mushroom produces a very resistant silk net, and while its silk is soft to the touch, it's actually extremely resilient, difficult to tear, and proves itself as an extremely good textile material to make clothes out of, as its exceptional insulating properties make it extremely resistant against high temperatures and even fire. Its quality outperformed only by ultra-tech fabrics such as hyperweave. It's unknown where the Devil's Strand name originates from, but some people believe that the name derives simply from its bright red color, while others believe that its name derives from the greed it inspires in people, as Devil's Strand is a rather expensive material. And while we are still on the subject of mushrooms, it will be worth mentioning the agaricus, a type of mushroom that can grow to enormous sizes within caves and other dark areas, as much like the nutrifungus, exposure to light will kill it, which is curious as the agaricus itself will form various glowing protrusions of unknown purpose. Despite its purple coloring and glowing properties which simply scream poison, the agaricus is actually quite edible. Personally, I will suggest carving thick slices and frying them in butter. And last but not least on the list of mushrooms, it's the glowstool. Again, typically found within caves, the glowstool is a light-sensitive mushroom. Small and greenish towards brown in color, the glowstool is perfectly edible and can have a surprisingly good taste when cooked, which you wouldn't believe at first, as its smell is described as an old dirty rag pulled from the stomach of a rotting buffalo, so just try to bear with the stench. Slice it evenly, grill it over a fire and enjoy a good meal. And now that we are done with mushrooms, let's get back to regular plants, starting with the cycoid plant. The cycoid plant is extremely popular across the galaxy, with certain xenohumans even depending on it for their survival. The cycoid plant resembles a small bush with many large leaves that generate a chemical compound called psychite. The plant's purpose for generating this chemical was for it to act as a self-defense mechanism against herbivores, as eating the leaves from the plant will overstimulate the animal, rendering it sick and causing it to avoid the plant in the future. Now, humans have found a way to make use of the psychite found within the plant's leaves, with many tribal colonies making use of them to infuse psychite tea, an energetic and euphoria-inducing drink, while more advanced societies will make use of psychite plants to produce flake, yayo, and various other substances. It is especially common for wasters to grow this plant, as their xenotype is highly dependent on psychite to survive, much like the Hazars are highly dependent on goat juice in order to stay alive. Smoked leaf is similar to the cycoid plant, although its uses are far more limited. This plant's leaves can be dried out and rolled in order to produce smoke leaf joints, which can be subsequently smoked, making its user feel relaxed. Perhaps a bit too relaxed, as it can reduce motivation to work, promote laziness, and possibly even create an addiction. Tinctoria is a curious plant. Its genetically engineered flowers will secrete a substance which can act as a self-altering dye, used widely to produce various types of colors to paint and dye someone's clothes or hair, making its usefulness a purely aesthetic one. But not every plant has its use, and outside of providing a meal for herbivore animals, the choke vine's presence can be actually detrimental. The choke vine is essentially a mass of tangled spiky vines which coil along the ground, tangling around the feet of people stepping on it, making movement just a little bit more annoying. While definitely not as dangerous as made out to be, multiple tribes have developed legends and stories of choke vines strangling children wandering out in the woods at night in order to scare little kids into coming back home before dark. It is likely for the choke vine to actually be a carnivorous plant. Since a choke vine could hinder a fully grown man, it could perhaps manage to entrap small animals, such as rodents, within its vines. The animals will later on die out of thirst or starvation, and the choke vine will likely be able to absorb its nutrients from the ground, although this is purely speculation. But let's talk about a life-saving plant instead, the toxi potato. While raw toxi potatoes have a high chance of causing food poisoning if properly cooked, they can provide a fairly decent nutritious meal. Not just that, but the toxi potato has been genetically altered to thrive within polluted areas, making this plant a lifesaver for many colonies and settlers living within toxic or polluted areas. And while on the subject of pollution, the toxi potato is not the only plant adapted to life within toxic environments. There are multiple trees adapted to life within polluted areas, namely the witchwood and the rat palm tree. They do not produce any kind of edible fruit, and even though they can be harvested, the amount of usable wood is miserable when compared to the wood of a healthy, pollution-free tree. But I'm sure that a third tree came to your mind apart from those two when I mentioned toxic environments, and you won't be wrong. While the rat palm tree and the witchwood tree merely survive within toxicity, the pollux tree actually thrives within it. After generations and generations of exposure to toxic environments, pollux trees evolved to metabolize and feed off environmental pollutants in the ground around them, drawing them through wide root networks. A single pollux tree can over time completely clear out the pollution found within its close terrain, essentially eliminating it forever, as it will be transformed into effective nutrition for the tree. The only issue seems to appear when objects or buildings are placed within a closed area of the pollux tree, as the surface pressure will cause its underground root network to stop working properly, essentially hindering the pollux tree and causing it to become unable to draw out any further pollution from the ground. And while we are on the subject of trees, let's talk about one of the rarest trees within the universe, with an aspect so unique and alien, making it extremely distinguishable, even at first glance, from all other trees. The anima tree. The anima tree has a brown skin-smooth bark bearing long iridescent leaves. Inhabited by many bioluminescent microorganisms, anima trees are a unique type of plant and life form. Over time, they will develop a psychic symbiosis with surrounding life forms, and while plants generally only require water, a good soil, and plenty of light to thrive, the anima tree can also thrive through a psychic connection, as the act of clearing one's mind and meditating next to the anima tree will cause anima grass to grow around its base. This special grass will serve as a medium to carry out a psychic linking ritual with the tree, allowing a person to strengthen their psychic powers. This type of ritual is known only to certain tribal colonies, as a strong connection to nature is required to properly understand the anima tree on a deeper psychic level. Not just that, but anima trees seem to be conscious on a certain level. They refuse to be enclosed and studied, and will weaken over time if structures are built around it, almost as if advocating for the freedom of nature, thus making the anima tree an impossible plant to harvest and study, as even the act of cutting one down will cause the anima tree to emit a strong psychic scream, affecting the minds of everyone in its vicinity, causing feelings of anxiety and distress for up to 5 uninterrupted days. Various tribes believe for the anima trees to be the physical extremities of a single world spirit, rather than simple plants. And now let's continue with another special type of tree, the harbinger tree. Harbinger trees are very unique. You can immediately tell the main difference from a harbinger tree and a regular one is their aspect. Harbinger trees have no leaves and they have no regular bark to speak of. Rather, they are made out of a biological fleshy material. It will be perhaps wrong to even categorize them as a plant, but if we do, they definitely deserve to fall into the category of carnivorous plants, as the harbinger's tree's most unique trait is its ability to feed on nearby raw meat and even corpses. Beneath the soil, the harbinger tree will constantly grow roots or tendrils that, upon detecting flesh, will emerge from the soil and slowly consume any dead biological matter surrounding them, including the bones. As gnarly as that might sound, harbinger trees can actually be quite beneficial. Their ability and propension to consume even rotting cadavers can prove quite useful in sanitizing their nearby environment, preventing the spread of disease and promoting biodegradability. While one might think that an additional benefit of the harbinger tree might be to use it as a source of nutrition, it is highly advised not to consume it. Harvesting harbinger trees will indeed produce edible chunks of meat, but the flesh produced from the tree will mostly be twisted muscle and gristle with an elevated presence of tumorous growths, which will be not only disgusting to the taste, but also distressful to consume, even if properly cooked. Harbinger trees are better farmed and grown as a source of bioferrite, a newly discovered material within the Rimworld universe bearing many unknown properties. The origin of this tree is actually unknown. It is not the result of any known bioengineering experiment, but a tribal myth circulates around various Rimworlds, speaking of the harbinger tree as an emissary of a mad, shapeless god who rules an endless black ocean, who will eventually reach up from the water and tear down the sky. And now onto the final entry on this list, one of the most complex life forms across the entire universe, the Goronland tree. Goronland trees are probably one of the most unique things you will encounter across the galaxy, and you will soon understand why. First of all, let's start with their aspect. Goronland trees are very large, with a round big solid trunk as its basis and a brightly orange colored foliage growing on its branches. While the Goronland tree is rather unique, what makes it truly fascinating is that within each of these trees, Another life form, which we are going to refer to as a dryad queen, will reside inside, forming a symbiotic relationship with the tree. While the Garonlan tree acts essentially as a host to maintain the dryad queen alive, the dryad queen will periodically give birth to a number of living biological creatures called dryads, which their sole purpose is going to be to guard and tend to the tree's needs, while the tree will nurture and provide the dryads with nutrients. The most interesting aspect though is the ability for humans to form a special connection with the Garonlan tree, and by taking care of it, to gain the ability to directly control the dryads, which can prove extremely beneficial, especially for tribal colonies, as dryads will initially appear as immature but in time can evolve and take different forms, each form capable of performing different tasks. The bark skin is a type of combat dryad. They are very resilient as their skin will be covered in a thick, bark-like hide, partly formed by the Garonlan tree itself. They take the role of guardians, making use of their body to put themselves in harm's way to protect their master. Clawers, on the other hand, while still being a type of dryad specialized in combat, they take the role of aggressors and bear large claw appendages that can cut through most enemies. Berry makers, as the name implies, are a caste of dryads specialized in the production of food. They will generate berries on their back, which can be harvested for nutrition, while medicine maker dryads will produce various medicinal herbs on a regular basis. Wood makers are rather similar. They will produce a wood-like material which can be used to build different structures or even as fuel. Carriers are the largest dryad caste. They're not particularly useful in combat, but just as their name suggests, under human influence they can be tasked to make use of their bulky stature to carry various heavy objects around. The last dryad on the list is going to be the Gawmaker, an especially important dryad. The Gawmaker has the ability to produce new Garonlan pods, which will bring forth new seeds and a new Garonlan tree, allowing the Garonlan tree to essentially reproduce with a new Garonlan dryad queen, which will eventually create new dryads and new Gawmakers, repeating the cycle. I hope you enjoyed this analysis of various plants within the Rimworld universe. If you did, don't hesitate to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more similar content in the future, and leave down in the comments your thoughts and ideas. I will see you soon in my next video. Have a good night.